This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. This is going to be one of those videos, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Before I get started, I'm going to ask you to help the kid out and hit that like button. You know how every little bit helps. This is a video that you're going to want to watch till the very end. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Do you guys remember back in January when they had the California wildfires and Harry and Meghan thought they were so important to show up for that photo shoot, you know, the PR stunt that they pulled, and everybody was calling them disaster tourists? Well, I made a comment saying that it's more than likely Harry and Meghan were showing up to make sure that they're in front of Gavin Newsom's face, because when those billions start dropping for, rebuilding California, they would be like the first in line. And then again in May, I went ahead and brought this up, indicating that it might be that Archwell is trying to secure funds from the state level since USAID had been cut off. I mean, I think many of us have noticed that this year, Harry and Meghan are not going on their faux royal tours and blessing the vulnerable and impoverished with their presence. I mean, we saw what they did with Colombia. We saw what they did with Nigeria. No doubt in my mind, all of that had been funded by money somehow being laundered through USAID. For us to really know for sure, there definitely needs to be a full audit of Archwell Fugazi Public Charity. But anyway, I mean, we all know this. Back to the point I'm going to try and make here now is that I did say don't be surprised if now we start seeing Harry and Meghan doing a lot of work in California. Well, sure enough, surprise, surprise, on the Archwell Fugazi Public Charity's website, published for August 2025, Civics Unplugged Fellows drive bold vision for the future at Civic Innovation Academy. Obviously, there's a lot of money going into California right now to rebuild, like I said at the beginning in January. I mean, I think almost $10 billion is being put into California to do all of this stuff that all of a sudden Archwell just cares about, right? Showing up and doing good, taking taxpayer money indirectly. Now, don't forget, I also said that watch, now that Trump is in office and he is against the whole human trafficking and, the children, we're going to start to see a lot of these elites start shifting and making it about the children and keeping them safe from predators. And that's what we're seeing from Harry and Meghan this year. There is this intense focus now on the kids, keeping the kids safe. So why is that? Well, let's go back to what I said at the very beginning when Harry and Meghan showed up as disaster tourists to help out or volunteer. Well, I should say pretend to volunteer. We all know that Harry and Meghan don't do anything out of the kindness of their heart. Well, in fact, a lot of these elite parasites who have these Fugazi foundations don't do anything really out of the kindness of their heart unless there is a paycheck at the end of it. I just want you to know that this is a scandal that is brewing. And remember that it was TRG who brought this to you first.
For Fire Aid, that star-studded concert that raised $100 million for wildfire victims. But where did all that money go? Investigative journalist Sue Pascoe has been digging for answers, and what she's discovered might just surprise you. And Sue Pascoe, she joins me now live on set. You are the editor of Circling the News.
Yes,
we can clearly see that. Thanks for the work that you're doing. So this is personal and professional for you because you lost your home in the Palisades fire, but that's not necessarily how this story landed in your lap. How did this all come to be?
A reader sent me a little note and said, I've never seen any fire aid money. How do I apply for fire aid money? And I thought, well, I've never thought about that. There's 12,000 people, basically 12,000 homes gone. Those people probably want to know where the money is. This will be an easy task to find out. So I contacted the Annenberg. They never responded.
And the Annenberg is
Foundation, because they are overseeing the wildfire funds, yes.
I just want to remind everybody that Prince Harry chose to skip out on the Queen's 95th birthday to fly back home to go have lunch with Wallace Annenberg. So Wallace Annenberg, who died this year, was the head of the family's multi-billion-dollar Annenberg Foundation. And this is the foundation that this woman in this video is talking about, who was managing these fire aid funds.
So I emailed them several times. They never responded. I called them several times. They never responded. And finally, it was like almost 2 weeks later, a woman got back to me and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry for the delay. The person you need to speak to is Chris Wallace. He's a media spokesperson for wildfire funds." So I contacted Chris and I said, "You know, victims want to know when they can get their money." Seems like a very simple question. He said, basically, they don't. All this money are going to nonprofits, and then nonprofits will take care of making sure the money's distributed. So I looked at initially they gave $50 million to about 120 nonprofits. And I looked at these nonprofits and one of them said, "We help mobile home parks." And there were 2 mobile home parks in the Palisades, all low income. And so I contacted the people there. They had never received any money. They had never heard of that. When you go through, I would urge everyone to just go to the nonprofits that are listed if you want a good laugh. I mean, one of the nonprofits cleans preschool bathrooms. Well, after the fire, who knows? Maybe there is a preschool bathroom that needs cleaning.
Yeah. In other words, a lot of these nonprofits are ancillary, if you will.
That's a nice way of saying it.
And you urge people, our viewers, they can go on the Fire Aid website. And yes, in terms of if you're Fire Aid, you can say, we have listed all the nonprofits. So they've given out $75 million so far, and you can see for yourself each nonprofit that has received money. The vetting process, though, that's an interesting angle to this story as well, because there's still another round of funding that will be given out. If you're a nonprofit, you would just have to fill out a simple, very simple questionnaire. 6 questions. So what do you make of the vetting process?
I think they're not helping the victims at all. Let's just say, and the other thing you should know, if you go on there, they don't say how much each individual nonprofit gets. So there are 2 nonprofits that are for the homeless people in the Palisades, Los Angeles in general, that they're getting money from LASA. So why are these nonprofits also getting money from Fire Aid? I don't know. They're homeless nonprofits. Of course, we're all homeless now, but
and to be clear, we have reached out to actually the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, to see if this is on his radar, because this is a whole lot of money and you are well connected in your community and you don't know anybody who has received fire aid money.
That's correct.
So what is your advice if you're a victim, and there are several who are probably watching tonight who lost their home like yourself, where do you go from here?
Hopefully with people like you who are bringing it to the attention of America, really, because we have all these people I know in the Midwest, where I'm from, who said, we want to give money, where do we give it? How can we help the people? This fire aid money is not helping the people. It's helping nonprofits, many of them who have executives that are getting a 6-figure salary. The money is not going to the victims that you wanted the money to go to.
Yeah, you make a great point, because there's a lot of people, this was an international story, and a lot of people people who really couldn't afford to give money, they
sent their $20,
right.
Yes.
And where's that money going?
Now, I really wish that I heard about this back in July of 2025, because for sure I would have amplified this. But better late than never. And today, when I went on the House of Representatives Committee on the Judiciary and scrolled through any recent letters or reports, I found this letter that was issued last week on October 8th, 2025, to the CEO of California Volunteers Fund. Let me go ahead and read this little gem to you. It starts, Dear Mr. Smith, in January 2025, deadly wildfires devastated and wreaked havoc in the state of California. In response to the wildfires, an organization called Fire Aid held a benefit concert raising $100 million, which the organization promised to send directly to people affected by the wildfires. According to available information, The California Volunteers Fund received grant money from FireAid as part of our oversight responsibilities, and in light of allegations that FireAid has diverted donations to nonprofits instead of providing direct relief to fire victims, we request your voluntary cooperation with our inquiry. The California Volunteers Fund is a nonprofit created by the California legislature to increase the quality, scale, and sustainability of California Service Corps to promote service and volunteerism. The fund financially supports volunteer efforts in California, including programs of a separate, similarly named entity known as California Volunteers. California Volunteers is a state entity within the Office of the Governor, tasked with engaging Californians in service, volunteering, and civic action to tackle our state's most pressing challenges. California Volunteers is led by a 25-member board of commissioners appointed by the governor, on which the California First Partner, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, serves as the honorary chair. Just a quick refresher, I showed you how this scam was being run in the education sector in California with Gavin Newsom and his wife. It looks like, or it appears, that this could possibly be the same thing, now taking advantage of the wildlife fires and the emergency money that Biden and the state had applied to recovery. The letter continues saying, since the January 2025 fires, FireAid has come under scrutiny for diverting donations to nonprofits instead of providing direct relief to fire victims. According to an internal report commissioned by FireAid, the California Volunteers Fund received $500,000 in grants to support victims of the California wildfires. It is not publicly known how the California Volunteers Fund distributed this $500,000 or what individuals or entities received funds. It is also unclear whether the state-based California Volunteers, run out of the governor's office, received any of the FireAid-originated funds via the California Volunteers Fund. On January 8, 2025, then President Biden approved a disaster declaration for the California fires, making federal funds available to victims and authorizing federal agencies to assist in the recovery efforts. The nation has an important interest in assisting victims of federally declared disaster and in discouraging potential fraud or misuse of charitable funds solicited to help these victims. It is critical in this case that money raised for fire recovery efforts go directly to victims of the California fires. Therefore, as part of the committee's oversight, we respectfully ask that you provide the following documents and information. Number 1. A detailed breakdown of all money received from FireAid, directly and indirectly, including the amount, date, recipient, and purpose of each expenditure. Number 2. All documents and communications between or among the California Volunteers Fund and California volunteers referring or relating to FireAid or the California fires for the period January 1st to the present. And number 3, all documents and communications referring or relating to FireAid for the period January 1st, 2025 to the present. Please produce all documents and information as soon as possible, but no later than 5 p.m. on October 22nd, 2025, literally next week. The Supreme Court has recognized that Congress has a broad and indispensable power to conduct oversight, which encompasses inquiries into the administration of existing laws, studies of proposed laws, and surveys in our social, economic, or political system for the purpose of enabling Congress to remedy them. Pursuant to the rules of the House of Representatives, the Judiciary Committee is authorized to conduct oversight of matters concerning criminal law and fraud in order to inform potential legislative reform. If you have any questions about this matter, please contact committee staff at 202-225-6906. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. Sincerely, Jim Jordan, Chairman, and Kevin Kiley, Member of Congress. So just so you understand what Jim Jordan was describing here, FireAid set up this fundraiser, a concert, and raised $100 million. Of that money, $500,000 went to this California Volunteers Fund, which is tied to the governor's office, meaning Gavin Newsom. But also, the rest of this money was doled out to various nonprofits. We'll get to those nonprofits in a second. But this is one instance of where funds potentially being misappropriated, considering there are victims who are saying that they have received no money, is wondering where all this money is going to. And we'll get there. So the California Volunteers Fund seems to be in a little bit of hot water. Back in January of 2025, when Meghan and Harry showed up 90 miles out of their way to go and volunteer with Gavin Newsom's wife, guess who else was standing there volunteering, wink, wink, with Gavin Newsom's wife and Meghan? That would be Chief Service Officer Josh Friday from California Volunteers. What a small world. So in theory, money could have been directly given to Meghan and Harry, not necessarily through the Archwell-Fugazi Public Charity, or they probably put it into the Archwell-Fugazi Public Charity and nobody will know who donated that money. Because obviously these two don't want to pay their taxes. So, this is how this scam works. And let's take it a step further. So, the rest of that money from FireAid, talking about $75 million that does not appear to be getting into the hands of the victims. Well, let's take a look at the nonprofits that are receiving this money for them to then dole it out. Now, remember what Jim Jordan's letter said. California Volunteers is a state entity within the office of the governor, tasked with engaging Californians in service, like Meghan Markle, who is from California, volunteering and civic action to tackle our state's most pressing challenges. So like what you saw earlier with Archwell getting involved with civic action and the youth. Where do you think they're getting their funds from? Now, fortunately, with nonprofits, it's very opaque, and the donations that are given to these charities do not have any type of visibility as to who they're coming from. So Archwell could have a dollar figure that's put up there, but it's anyone's guess where that money is coming from unless the IRS gets in there and does a full audit, which is what is needed here. Because my suspicion, based off of past selfish, greedy behavior by Harry and Meghan, there's no doubt in some way or some form they benefited and profited from this, which makes it even more disgusting. Which now brings me to the FireAid Fund, which in total they had raised about $100 million and have written grants to a tune about $75 million so far. They still have $25 million left to give out that is supposed to reach fire victims. We are now in October and they're holding on to $25 million. But the $75 million that was doled out did not go directly to the victims. It went directly to the various nonprofits, as this woman earlier had explained. So now it's starting to make sense as to how money is flowing to the Archwell-Fugazi Public Charity or into the pockets directly of Harry and Meghan without it being so connected directly to the U.S. government. You see, FireAid Fund then took this money and doled it out to a whole bunch of nonprofits. Nonprofits that just so happen to be promoted out of the kindness of Harry and Meghan's heart on their website. Let's take a look at a few of them. Let's take a look at Pasadena Community Foundation first. Out of the $100 million that FireAid raised, $7.6 million of people's donations went to this fund, a fund that most likely then doled out money to Harry and Meghan just for showing up to do this PR stunt and to put their name on the website. This actually giving this organization some visibility, all to drive donations. Now, did those donations end up getting into the hands of the victims at the end of the day? Well, this is why they are conducting this investigation. And I do think that Harry and Meghan should also be investigated for this now, because if they just showed up to take a couple pictures and then to put this on their website and they're receiving $100,000 or $200,000 for just showing up, and that just makes them even more gross, which at this point, I think we should expect that this is what they did. And the money didn't go directly to Archewell Fugazi Public Charity. What I suspect Harry and Meghan have been doing is taking whatever money that they are getting from these appearances and pretending that they're humanitarians, and then putting it into a DAFT and then submitting it through like a Fidelity or a Silicon Valley community fund, and then calling it a day. That way they get to stay anonymous and skipping out on having to pay taxes on it. Another organization that Harry and Meghan had listed was Baby to Baby, and out of the $100 million that FireAid had raised, they had given Baby to Baby $3.5 million. So my question is, how much money did Meghan and Harry receive for putting that up on their website? Did they receive anything? The only way that we'll know is if the IRS goes ahead and does a full audit, not only on the Fugazi charity, but into all 11 of those shell companies. Another one on their list is Project Camp. FireAid gave them $3.8 million. Again, wondering how much money was given in partnership to Meghan and Harry, or the Archewell Fugazi Public Charity. Or was there some type of like negotiated package deal where they put these organizations up and they get a total of like $500,000? Either way, I don't buy that they did this out of the kindness of their heart and they didn't receive any monetary funds for showing up and doing good. You know what I mean? Keep in mind that this is how the NGOs receive money from the US government. So even though FireAid had raised money from the public, don't forget that the US government from the Biden regime gave X amount of billions of dollars to Gavin Newsom, who then took that money and doled it out to these nonprofits, the same nonprofits that Meghan and Harry had put up on their website. So we know that money is transferring hands and potentially not getting to the victims, which is exactly what is being accused of here. Now, do I think that Harry and Meghan got their hands on some of that money? You bet I do. And that's why I'm sounding the alarm on this and why I need you guys now to go out and share this video and show people why this couple need to be thoroughly investigated. Not only the Archewell Fugazi Public Charity, but also the 11 shell corporations that they have and any offshore accounts that they may be holding. Given the fact that Harry and Meghan are so manipulative and deceitful, I don't buy for 1 second that Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan, went out of her way 90 miles to go volunteer in a town that she has no connection with, unless there was money tied to it. Showing up to volunteer with Gavin Newsom's wife, as well as the California Volunteers Fund. Yeah, you know what I always say, birds of a feather always flock together, and I don't think this is any different. I do believe there's something up here and we need to make some noise. But what do you guys think? Are you surprised? I mean, I'm not. But at least this is comforting to know that Congress will be investigating this. And I do hope they look closer now at Harry and Meghan. But we need to put this on Jim Jordan's radar. So if you're on X or other platforms, please, by all means, tag him. Let him know, write to him, call him. If you're in the United States, let him know that Harry and Meghan are tied to this and they should also be investigated. But definitely let me know your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.